Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Clean Machine Live. My name is Geoff Palmer. I'm the CEO and founder of Clean Machine. And today we're going to talk about fat loss. What makes fat loss? What is the most successful way, the fastest and the most effective way to reduce fat without losing muscle? This video is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Okay, let's start with the basics. The order in which the body typically uses energy is first, it'll burn up its blood sugar. That's the available sugar that's in the, or carbohydrates that are in the bloodstream. Convert that to ATP, the energy source that'll help us utilize energy. Then it goes to glycogen stores in the muscle and also in the liver. And then once those glycogen stores are depleted, that's when the body will typically start burning fat. And then finally, if the body fat stores get low, or if the body feels like it's burning fat too quickly, it may actually go to protein. Now, where's the protein stores? Well, we store carbohydrates and sugars and fats in fat tissues. We store protein in muscle cells. So where do we get the energy to make glucose from? Bingo, from our muscle stores. So your body can break down what's called catabolism or going catabolic. And that's when the body starts breaking down muscle to use as energy. Okay, and the best way to prevent the body from breaking down that muscle is by exercise. Basically, you're telling the body, hey, wait, I'm using that muscle. Don't use that for energy because I need it. All right, so let's take a look at the first study. And this was a big study. This is why I like talking about this study. This study is diet, exercise, or diet with exercise, comparing the effectiveness of treatment options for weight loss and changes in fitness for adults, 18 to 65, so a nice broad range of ages who are overfat, means who are overweight or obese. And this is a systematic review and meta-analysis. This is considered the gold standard of studies. It is the highest quality research we look at. Okay, it was a systematic review of 66 population-based studies, that's epidemiological studies, and 162 study-wise groups. All right, so looking at actual intervention studies. So a broad range of both observational studies and interventional studies. Studies looking at large groups of people and studies looking at what happens when we change something with people. Okay, so over 220 studies in review here. So this is a really big, broad study. So the results tend to be a higher quality. First, a hypocaloric, hypo meaning reduced or lower, balance is necessary. Basically, you have to reduce typical calorie intake rather lower than maintenance in order to elicit a fat burning response. But the effectiveness for establishing imbalance does not equate with the effectiveness for body composition changes. So exercise matters, your activity level matters. You know, some people say it's only diet, that's all that matters. That's not true. And we're going to see why, because it changes hormones, it changes insulin, it changes so many other different factors, your metabolism, it changes the rate of metabolic burn. Lots of changes can be initiated by exercise, and that exercise can be lasting 24, 2 to 3 days even sometimes. Your body is still in an accelerated metabolic function, burning more calories. Okay, so what are the results of the study showed? The results showed that the combination of resistance training plus caloric restriction, lowering your calorie intake, plus resistance training was more effective than endurance training, or even a combination of resistance training and endurance training. Now, why is this? Well, let's break this part into two parts. First, why was resistance training with calorie reduction more effective than what typically people call cardio training? So treadmill or that type of most people, especially women, think, oh, I got to do more cardio training, which is endurance style training, ET, as you see there, endurance training. This is typical cardio exercises, right? They think, oh, this is going to get me more weight loss. Well, you may lose weight, but that weight may be loss of not only fat, but of muscle too, as well. So resistance training was more effective at weight loss, at fat loss, actually, than endurance training. Now, it even went on to say it was more effective than even weight training or resistance training with endurance training combined. Now, that was actually a little bit surprising even to me because I often like to do a little bit of cardio to get my heart and breath rates up before I go in and train heavy on the gym. But this actually studies, huge study, looking at over 220 studies, showed that actually resistance training with calorie reduction was the most effective at losing weight. Now, it gets a little more complicated than that because what they're looking at overall results, losing fat, I should say, very specifically. Okay, so what happens when you use cardio training over here to drop body weight? Well, you actually end up dropping some of your muscle. So you lose fat, and then if you gain it back, now you have less muscle than you started with, but you're at the same weight. That means more of your weight, even if you get back to the exact same weight, is now fat. You've reduced the muscle. It's called yo-yo dieting. So when you diet during endurance training, you're lowering some fat and some muscle, but then people tend to yo-yo or gain some of that fat back, but now they've got less muscle. So then it makes it harder for them to lose weight because you don't have as much actual muscle tissue that is burning calories, especially while you're training or working out. Now, muscle uses calories to exercise. And let's talk about the two different fibers that are in muscle. There is two different major fibers. There's more different types than that, actually. There's, and I'm just doing real basic here, there's type 1 and type 2. There's type 2A, type 2B, type 2X. There's, okay, some different things, but for all intents and purposes, you got type 1 muscle fibers, which is more slow twitch. This is endurance. This burns is very conservative with calories, right? And then you've got fast twitch muscles, which is what we use for weights, right? Burst strength, a lot of using a lot of power, a lot of strength all at once. This uses a lot of calories. All right, so it also increases more hypertrophy. That's the muscle size and volume. So the more muscle volume and size there, more calories you're going to burn because you're feeding more muscle tissue. Whereas endurance, you can see very thin muscles on people who are endurance training, like long distance runners or bikers. They have a much leaner looking muscles. That's because the muscle is being used over and over and over and over and over again. So type 1 muscle fibers actually conserve energy so that you can do this long style of training and burning only a little bit of calories at a time. So by training endurance or doing a lot of cardio, you can actually tell your body to switch more over to type 1 muscle fibers, which end up actually burning less calories because they're better at conserving calories, at not using as much calories. When you train weight training or resistance training, using the big type 2 muscle fibers. Now, these consume a lot of calories, a lot more than your type 1 muscle fibers. So this cardio training that people think are doing is thinking it's better for burning calories is actually just the opposite. It's less burning of calories and it's smaller amount or less muscle volume, so less calories needed to feed that muscle. All right, so let's take a look at the results of the study. They said, particularly when the progressive weight training, that is adding a little bit more weight or increasing the intensity of your training, in 2 to 3 sets for 6 to 10 reps at least an intensity of 75% of your 1 rep max. That's how much weight you can do in 1 push. 75% of that, if you can push 100, that means 75 pounds, and then doing 2 to 3 sets of 6 to 10 reps. This got the most whole body fat-free mass to be reduced. So this is the most effective way at reducing body fat, but more importantly, keeping that body fat off. Because if you increase muscle, now you're burning more fat calories and bringing that down, but you're maintaining that muscle so you can keep that body fat low. Now, this is really important for those who don't want to yo-yo, don't want to bounce up and down in calorie counts and saying, oh, wait, I blew my calories today. Now I'm going to gain a lot more fat. If you're training hard, you're burning those calories, but you're burning them consistently every day because you have more muscle tissue there to burn those calories. Okay, it goes on to say, the study continues, that diet plus RT resistance training, that's using weights, was more effective for body mass reduction, that's total weight loss, for fat mass reduction, and for retention of free fat mass. Remember, if you're doing cardio, you're not really growing muscle tissue. You're actually can be reducing the amount of muscle tissue. Let me actually show you the graph here. Let's go to the graph, and you can see this from the study. Okay, in the graph, the first set of graph is just diet alone. And the gray part of the graph there is how much fat is lost. And the dark gray is how much muscle is lost. So you can see, let me actually remove the caption there. Okay, so the second group is weight loss plus aerobic training, or AT. You can see that in the middle bars. You can see aerobic training, sure enough, did make more fat loss, but it also created more muscle loss, the dark bar right beside it. Now, when you look at the third group, which is a dietary reduction plus resistance training, you lost even more fat than those doing training or endurance training. But look at the muscle mass. You lost less muscle mass than either dieting alone or aerobic training. You lost half as much, or you maintained twice as much muscle as you did if you were doing the weight loss or the calorie reduction with aerobic training. So you want to keep that muscle mass because that'll burn calories all day and help you maintain that body weight, especially important as you are aging. Once you get over 40 to 50 years of age, metabolism can slow and it can be harder to build muscle. So this is even more important because that's when we see people really rapidly start gaining body fat, which can lead to other issues and problems, which I'm going to show you next. Let's get back to the captions. And this is what the study showed. Next, they also measured cholesterol, triglycerides, and low-density lipoproteins. These are the really dangerous lipoproteins, the LDL cholesterol, that is causal for atherosclerosis, the #1 cause of death. So diet, reducing calories, plus resistance training was more effective at reducing your cholesterol, reducing your triglycerides, and reducing those low-density lipoproteins like LDL cholesterol and ApoB and Lipo-A. These are the ones that are really dangerous. And resistance training, using weights plus reducing some calories, that was the most effective. So not only better for overall body composition, overall better for health too as well. Now, this next study is actually going to go, let me finish up with this last one. The last point in the study is they measured insulin, and resistance training was actually more effective at reducing fasting insulin than the endurance training or even combining endurance training with resistance training. So that high intensity level that we're seeing, that's what's making the body more efficient at being able to process sugars, fats, carbohydrates, etc. These calories, it makes the body more efficient because you're increasing the intensity. So they said that these resistance training was more pronounced. You get better effects with a higher intensity of the training style. So this next study is a 2018 study, and they're actually looking at the hormones, how hormones are affected by people who are sedentary and the improvements that they saw in resistance training. They also found that the findings suggest that regular exercise training, and in particular resistance training, is likely to reduce body weight and improve body composition. That's the ratio of body fat to muscle, improve it better. So across the board, and they found this by changing many of the different hormones that are released in the body that cause the body to store fat or to utilize them as energy. So it's actually shifting hormones, not only insulin, not only your lipoproteins, it's the whole metabolic profile that's being improved, specifically with resistance training. This is why I'm such a big advocate of resistance training. Whether you're male or female, doesn't matter. Resistance training is great for both genders, important for both genders, especially to lose that body fat, but to improve your health markers all the way across the board. The final study we're going to look at is a more recent study, because I was like, okay, those are 2015, 16, 2018. This is 2023 study, just last year. It's another systematic review and meta-analysis. So a meta-analysis generally looks at a whole bunch of studies instead of just cherry picking one. They could say, hey, wait a minute, that was just one study. Are there any other confounding studies? No, this is a meta-analysis, and even better than that, it's a review. So it's a team of researchers reviewing all of the research and, let's say, pulling out the data and saying, what does this mean altogether? I like these. It's a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials, which means these are interventional trials too, not just looking at epidemiologically data, just looking at see what happens in a general population. No, these are actually taking people, putting them in testing situations, removing or intervening, changing something in the study. And so this is a real high quality study as well. They found that energy restriction or calorie reduction alone was less effective and tended to decrease muscle mass. So dieting can drop your body fat, but it will almost certainly, to some degree, also reduce your muscle. So you're going to shrink your muscles. And when you do that, you have less muscle tissue burning calories all day long. Some estimates show that about 2 to 3 pounds of muscle on your body spread out all evenly. So there's just a few ounces on each limb or whatever. But about 2 to 3 pounds of muscle gains added to your body will burn almost a pound of fat every month. So you could, just by having that, be burning that many more calories in a single month, just by having that extra muscle, doing nothing else, not changing the diet at all. Just having more muscle will actually help you burn more fat. So they go on to say, overall, the most effective strategy for nearly all outcomes was combining energy restriction or calorie restriction with resistance training or mixed exercise, that is resistance training and aerobic training, and high protein. So in that case, you're actually using the protein to make sure that the body maintains the muscle tissue, or in some cases, they show the protein actually ended up burning as energy because it's free protein in the bloodstream. And the body says, well, we're not using it or we don't need it right now. Let's go ahead and burn it for calories. So protein can be utilized for energy just as well as carbohydrates and fats are. Now, the body is reluctant to use protein because protein is used for material structure of things, whereas fats and carbs are basically used for energy mostly, although Certainly, there are fats that are used for structure of cell membranes and things like this too, like polyunsaturated fats, PUFAs or omegas. So they do play a part, but the vast majority of fats and carbohydrates are more so used for energy than proteins. Proteins are used less for energy and they're more conserved. Okay, and so this was an interesting warning to healthcare practitioners over this study saying that healthcare professionals involved in the management of persons with obesity need to be aware that an energy restricted diet alone, just dropping the calories, may contribute to sarcopenic obesity. Sarcopenia is muscle loss. So when you lose a lot of muscle because of dieting, by not feeding the body, and the body starts burning up muscle to use as energy, once you do that, you have less muscle. That means you can be what's called skinny fat. That is where the body is actually lower in body weight, but still carrying a disproportionate amount of fat to muscle. And that's not healthy either. So they're warning practitioners, don't use just dieting alone, because you can end up keeping trunk fat, the dangerous fat inside the body, and getting to a normal weight. But you lose so much muscle that normal weight is your overall weight, but more of it is body fat. And that can be unhealthy too, and can be even more dangerous in some ways. So this is the study that looks at that. This is the actual study title. Let me go ahead and get that because you have the link there too. It's a 2023 study called The Paradox of Obesity with Normal Weight. That means somebody who scale weight and height have normal BMI. That's the ratio of your height to your total weight. You can be in the normal range for BMI and still be obese because you have so little muscle. Your ratio of muscle to fat is really important here because muscle helps with your overall metabolic health. And when you have a high ratio to that, even if you're in the normal range, this is what they call skinny fat. This is where you are not skinny per se, but it's called that, where you are in normal body weight range. But because you have so little muscle compared to fat, even though you're in the normal body weight range, you're not healthy. You're not metabolically healthy. And that's the difference between some people actually maintaining a lot of what's called trunk fat or VAT, as you can see it on the screen. That's visceral adipose tissue. That's the fat that's inside of our body that wrapped around our organs, like our liver. Our liver can become very fatty without much fat on the surface of our skin. That's called subcutaneous, or right underneath the skin, the cutaneous layer. Subcutaneous fat is what we normally see. Oh, you got a lot of fat hanging off your arms or stuff like that. That's the fat that we think, oh, that's fat. No, the more dangerous fat is the fat that's inside of our body, wrapped around our heart, wrapped around our liver and kidneys. This is dangerous fat because this can really start causing type 2 diabetes. Actually, when you see type 2 diabetes, one of the very first prognoses is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. As where fat builds up around the liver, and then you start to see some sluggishness with the insulin, and insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes set in. So that's the difference. And this is the reasons why I really strongly promote not only a plant-based diet and eating more plants, but giving people products that will actually help them get better results in the gym. Because the main reason people stop going to the gym is, okay, one, I don't have enough time. Make time. It's your health. Don't wait till a disease happens before you get there, because it might be too late to turn around. Number two reason, though, is I'm not getting results fast enough. So I want to help people see results, feel results sooner. So they're like, wow, this is great. I feel the results. I see the results. I'm feeling better. I'm more active, more energy and stuff like that. And that's why I created products that will help people like Intense. All right. So everything we do is science-based, though. As you can tell, I just went through a bunch of studies. And the science on this ingredient, rip factor, which is actually these two here. That's Indian globe thistle and mango tree bark. Okay, so they put it to the test, as Dr. Greger would say, and they found in humans who are exercising 3 times more lean muscle mass gains in men and 2 times more lean muscle mass gains in women. And this was really exciting because they knew that Indian globe thistle actually could accelerate or increase testosterone. But then they were like, wait a minute, what about women? Women don't want more testosterone. Well, this part is amazing. They looked at the testosterone levels in men and women and found that men, sure enough, got 3 times more muscle because they had 3 times more testosterone. But the same product did not affect women's testosterone levels at all. Yet it still increased their muscle by 2 times. That's really cool. That means that these ingredients, even though they're affecting they're affecting testosterone in men, they're not affecting testosterone in women, yet still greatly, significantly affecting the amount of muscle you can gain. So both men and women can use this safely and get amazing results just with these two natural herbal ingredients: mango tree bark and Indian globe thistle that's in the product. So I wanted to get more people using this, so we reduced the price of our Intense Clean pre-workout even more to make this more affordable so that everybody can try this, because I'm getting phenomenal results in this at my age at 61. This product is incredible. So you increase muscle gains up to 4 times. This is clinically proven and researched in humans in multiple studies. I believe there's 5 studies now based on rip factor. It's incredible. We use the highest polyphenol ingredients in this to help with that fat burning process and to boost nitric oxide. So you get an incredible pump and get more blood flowing to the muscles so that the muscles can actually heal and repair and recover quicker. That means you can get back into the gym without so much soreness. It's an awesome product. I really love this product. It's one of my favorite products because it's so effective. I hope you enjoyed this research. I hope you understand now why it's so important to get in the gym, use weights. Look, it doesn't have to be heavy. Whatever it is that is the weight that you need to struggle with. You want to get that highest resistance, that point where you're really challenging your body. This will stimulate muscle growth and maintain the muscle so that you have more muscle, burning more calories, improving your insulin levels so you can reduce your risk for diabetes, improving your overall cardiovascular health, improving your lipoproteins and your cholesterol, your triglycerides. It's good on every level. And that's why I really stress it and why it's important for both men and women to use weight bearing or resistance. Now, you can use machines, doesn't have to be just free weights, although free weights have shown to be more effective. So if you can use free weights, do it. It's going to get you better results. And train with intensity, using a good weight that's difficult for you to get to 6 to 8 reps. That's where the sweet spot, where most of this research is showing you'll get the best results from. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm trying to get you the best information out there based on the real research. These big meta-analysis studies, over 200 studies we reviewed just now in this episode, all condense that information and bring it down to soundbite material so that you can see what the best approaches are to get the best results in the gym, so that you can stay in a place where you're saying, I'm loving my results. I'm 61. I've been vegan for 40 years. There's no excuses. Get in the gym, get the results, and you're going to be happy for it.